Hello, everybody. Welcome to Jeff and Priti's event. Thank you all so much for coming. Honestly, this turnout is unbelievable. We had to pivot location. It was going to originally be at our downtown location, but we got lots of RSVPs. I think as of today, we have like 290. Our store can only hold 60, so thank you so much for coming. And my name's Freddie. I'm the marketing manager for Arc'teryx in Seattle. One of the many people that helped put this together, so thank you so much to Daniel, my store manager, Jeff and Priti, and Cameron and Megan from the collective for having this just like slide in super last minute. So yeah, thank you so much. And I'll hand it off to Daniel Hayes, my store manager.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming out. Can we get a big round of applause for Freddie? He put so much hard work in this event and really made it what it is today. And we're all here to celebrate Priti and Jeff, two just genuine and badass people. We're going to learn about their adventures that they've done and the ones coming up. So let's kick it off to them and have a great night. And up next will be Megan. She's from the collective, and she'll tell you about the collective.
Hi everyone, how are you? Awesome. I'm Megan. I work in member experience here at the collective. We're so happy to see all of your faces here. This is so exciting to see so many people just hanging out, coming to see Jeff and Priti. We're really excited for the presentation. If anyone is interested in coming back for a day pass to kind of explore what the collective is about, this is kind of the place for people exactly like you. We're your home. We call this place an urban base camp, and we have a rock climbing wall on the other side. If anyone wants a quick little tour after this is over, happy to do that. But you're welcome to come back. We'll host you for a whole day. We'll have lunch. We'll give you a tour. We'll tell you more about what the vibe and the energy is here. If you have any questions, again, my name is Megan. I have these cards if you're like definitely interested and want to come back. Or there's some QR codes around that you can scan and input yourself, and our membership director will message you to come back. All right, enjoy.
Hello. We are so happy to be here tonight.
Thanks everyone for coming out.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Pre-pandemic, like we used to have something once a week, and we used to be like climbing talk junkies at every store. There'd be a new thing, and so hopefully we can start doing more of that. But I appreciate everyone coming out.
And thank you so much to Arc'teryx. We recently joined the Seattle team to be Seattle ambassadors. So thank you so much, and that's how we're here today. And thank you to the collective for having us. If you haven't gotten your raffle ticket yet, come get a raffle ticket right now. There is mega amazing gear that you could win. So grab your raffle ticket.
So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about. It's going to be a mix of glorified trip report / a little bit of Stoke / some lessons that we've taken away from the past couple of years.
And it's also going to be like a kind of campfire storytelling thing. So we want to tell you what awesome experiences we've had in the mountains and some of the like less fun experiences as well. We got to keep it a little bit real. And then
First lesson: if you tilt the camera like dramatically, it makes your pictures come out fuller. So tonight we'll give a little bit of background about us. I figure a lot of you might not have heard about us. I don't know why you're here, but thank you. And then
and we've been so inspired by everyone who is here, who are our friends, and that's just, I'm so inspired and so happy to have you and count you all as my friends.
And future friends.
And future friends, yes, exactly.
And then we'll talk about some of the places that we've climbed locally and around the world, and how we kind of ended up where we're at.
So we started out in Florida. That's where we first met. Florida kind of breeds wild people who do weird things when they get bored, and we really loved the outdoors. And one of our first dates was chasing alligators in a kayak around the lake here at the University of Florida. And that was so exciting. And I was like, this guy's a keeper. Let's go outdoors more.
But I was never really active growing up. I know probably a lot of you were pretty lucky to have your parents take you up right here when you were teenagers, but we were just like, music was my life growing up, and I didn't really ever camp even.
Florida
And
doesn't have very tall mountains. I think the tallest is Space Mountain.
the Mountain Project page of Florida is kind of entertaining if you're ever bored.
But we still love Florida. No Florida hate at all. In fact, one of the clubs in Florida is the Outdoor Adventure Rec Club, and that's, woo, yeah. So we have some folks from
We
Orr,
have
so call out to
some
Orr.
Gainesville Orrs here.
And so these are some of the amazing organizations that have brought us to where we are today, including Orr.
That's when you know you love it, when you drive 7 hours each way to go cragging every weekend.
Jeff
and
made the trip
dedicated.
down to El Potrero Chico in Mexico from Florida for some amazing rock climbing for a very long winter break.
Get desperate. So, grew up in Florida. I was born in Hawaii, actually, and we moved to Seattle 10 years ago, and really just inspired by the mountains to get into mountaineering. And alpinism was not even on our radar, really. I didn't even know what alpine climbing was, or that was even a phrase. And
We were like,
I knew
"Well,
about
snow,
mountaineering,
that's
but
the thing, yes, okay.
carrying like metal in your pack to go climb a hard rock route or some hard ice that's like really remote is something totally unknown to us that people do. And so we came here primarily for jobs, and there's a lot of them. But fell in love with the mountains, and I work for Boeing, and Boeing has an interesting alpine club, and we're lucky to have a lot of clubs in the
So many
Pacific
clubs.
Northwest.
We have the Boeing Alpine Club, the Washington Alpine Club, the Mountaineers, Mazonas.
There are other
There are
things
so many-
besides the Mountaineers.
And the amazing thing,
I love the Mountaineers. There are other places.
but it's also so inspiring to have these clubs, and there are hundreds of people who are dedicating their time every day, just volunteering to bring what they love to other people, and bring the outdoors to other people, and that's so inspiring to me. I love it.
And
Thank
it's nice
you.
to have a community like of other like-minded people that you get to know and you take classes with. So we had kind of a traditional background of very intensive classes that would last a long time, like 6 months, and then we spend years teaching and reteaching, and so that was more of your traditional kind of approach. And I'm kind of a fan of that, especially if I have this other group of people who I know have taken this class and have this particular set of skills.
And there's so many things to learn. Like, if you just go sport climbing, then you can learn how to crevasse rescue. You can learn all the first aid stuff in the wilderness. You can learn how to do rescue. You can learn how to trad climb to get to the top of things. So we were becoming more and more weekend warriors. And so we moved here in Seattle in 2012 and joined Bo Alps. And then more and more we've just gotten more into the outdoors.
And
Bigger
to
and bigger
Gary,
adventures.
and every climb, we treat every climb, every outing like as a progressive move towards something bigger. So we're slowly doing
But we're
bigger
also,
and bigger climbs over the last 10 years.
and we're also like working full time. We have 9 to 5 jobs, and so we're weekend warriors. We go out and just go really hard on the weekend. And what that means a lot of the time is to doing this thing called a smash and grab, where we see that there's amazing weather somewhere, and we'll just go fly out there last minute and go climb in amazing weather. Like in Alaska. Alaska is so close. It's very
Sitting at 14,000,
flight.
like, you could be in the Alaska range more quickly than you could be at like Dragon Tail at the base of Dragon. You can just
Including the hiking.
get to the glaciers of Alaska so fast. And so smash and grabbing in Alaska is a thing that people have been exploring for the past 10, 20 years. And it works. It's a lot better because we have done where you sit for 4 weeks
Yeah.
at 14,000 feet on Denali. Or you sit
In bad
in El
weather.
Chalten, Patagonia for 2 months and don't really climb anything. So we had to make it work as full-time professionals. I'm an engineer. Priti's a software developer. And then, so slowly climbing more and more things. We climbed El Cap twice, Nose in a Day, and some bigger ice routes. And we're pretty moderate climbers at a lot of different aspects of climbing. and being mediocre at a lot of things kind of makes you a good alpinist. Because you,
We're not the hardest rock climbers.
yeah, like if you see me at World Wall, we'll be climbing the easiest routes at World Wall. And if you climb with me at SVP, you're probably going to climb better than me. But you learn to be scrappy and solve problems and deal with a variety of terrain. And that's really the beauty of alpine climbing.
Yeah, and then in 2020 we decided, okay, we've had enough of being weekend warriors. We want to take time off and actually go to these places that take a little bit longer to go to. So we started out going to Patagonia.
I don't know if you remember, like 2017 to 2019, everybody was quitting their jobs. I don't know what happened, but all of my friends were quitting their jobs and traveling for like a year. And there was a lot of pressure to like also do that. And like I was inspired to like, I should be doing something. And it was scary, but 100%, an amazing decision to take a sabbatical. And of course, it's going to hit my retirement date, but
not that much.
yeah,
We've done enough.
it's totally worth it. So we planned for a couple of years, saving up to take a whole year off. So we took all of 2020 off. The best year to take off.
We had no idea what was coming.
So started in El Chalten, which is near and dear to our hearts. We've been to El Chalten 5 times.
And if you don't know, that's in Patagonia, the like very tip of South America in Argentina, right on the border of Argentina and Chile. They have some amazing, incredible mountains.
And it's a pretty small pocket of mountains, but there's so much. So there's the Fitzroy Range on top. If any of you have seen the documentary of Alex and Tommy climbing the Fitz Traverse. And then on the bottom, this is the Torrey Range. So there's just endless things
Alex
to climb.
Honnold and Colin Haley climbed in a day at the bottom.
But Alex is actually the only person who's traversed both of these. Son of a gun. He's not even an alpinist. So some people you just go and you fall in love with this place and you just keep going back and you climb a mountain and you get to the top and you're like, oh, there's something down there, I want to go climb that, or I want to climb that peak. And then there's like, even if you tag all the peaks, which there's a lot of them, there's still so many routes that are so inspiring.
And then the people who you meet down there are really incredible people as well. It's a small community, and everyone who goes there goes because it's such a beautiful place and such an awesome place to climb. And for example, Cerro Torre is just this dream route. Anyone who's seen a picture of it or a video of it and ice climbs or dreams of alpine climbing kind of goes, oh man, I want to do that someday. And that was definitely us. From the first time we went ice climbing and then saw a picture of Cerro Torre,
You see there's a lot of people. Like in Patagonia, people will sit there in town for 2 months, and there will be 1 or maybe 2 weather windows, and then everybody goes to Cerro Torre, and it's like surprisingly busy. You're so remote, but then there's 20 people around you on this route. But incredible route, incredible mountains.
And when we were on top, we got to see Fabi Boule be the first person to climb Cerro Torre and paraglide off. And seeing that was just so cool. I was like, oh man, I've always wanted to learn how to paraglide, but we've got to make it happen this year. It was just, man, fastest way down ever. He took all the trash and just like flew down the mountain, was down in like 30 minutes. I'm like, dang.
So paragliding is the future. Cerro Torre's got these crazy rind mushrooms.
Like
Actually,
Dr.
Mount Hood,
Seuss Magic Land.
it's
Wild.
unreal. Hood is pretty similar. This is like Hood, but Hood is the only real volcano that has actual rind.
Ice and these wild formations that the wind blasts onto the rock.
Yeah, like Yoakum Ridge is still
Like
it's this
powdered
incredible
sugar,
feature.
snow, and somehow sticking together. You have to like swim upwards,
And you're
burrowing your
placing
way through the snow, and you're getting drenched as this happens. And to get to the summit, you have to like dig a tunnel. In Cerro Torre, not sure if on Hood you have to dig too many tunnels.
and you're placing pickets in vertically, like nothing is gonna hold.
And then you come across this magical wind tunnel in the Rime ice, and it's solid blue ice with perfect sticks, and you're climbing up into a subway tunnel of ice, completely surrounded. And then you pop up on top of a snow mushroom. You're like, where in the world? How did this happen? Am I in a different planet? This is wild.
It's pretty unique. So the weather system, it circles around the Southern Ocean, and it hits the tip of South America. And then all this snow and ice and rain, it smashes against something vertical, which is the Torrey Range. And then you have this accumulation of ice that forms in the Rime, and then these wind vortices make these natural tunnels, and then eventually the tunnels get big enough that they collapse. So this one actually collapsed like a month after we were there.
In 2020.
And there's a cool video, but nobody was in it because it was hot.
late in the season. It was too hot. Yeah.
Yeah, but they do shear off eventually when there's enough accumulation.
And so the wind is notorious in Patagonia. It like circles around the South Pole with no land masses to hit until it hits the Torrey Range. So that's something that we keep in the back of our mind, and I'm always nervous when I go out there. I'm like, is this the time the weather is just gonna like sneak up on us? We're gonna see the wall of death of like clouds approaching, and they get smashed by 100-mile-per-hour winds. But that's why we wait for the good weather.
Our instructor, Alpine Dave Burdick, he got us stoked on Patagonia, and there's actually a lot of moderate routes, even a lot of mountaineering routes. So it's a pretty rad place.
The first time we went to Patagonia, we could only lead like maybe 5-9 trad, and there were routes that we got to climb. We climbed a De La S, which has a beautiful 5-9 route, but the approaches are like heinous. You're going to be going across so much scree, hiking up on loose scree slopes for 3 days to get to the base of your climb. But it's worth it because you're in this amazing, beautiful place.
It's magic. And then a lot of rappelling through the night.
So at the beginning of this year, we got to...
We're fast forwarding.
Yes.
So we're now in January 2022.
So when we're in top of Territory, we looked over and saw the other 2-3 peaks next to it. We're like, oh, Torrey Egger, Punta Huron, and Aguja Stanhart. Someday we should go back for those because those are the most inaccessible peaks down there. There's no easy way up. You have to be a really good rock climber and a really good ice climber and carry everything with you. And this year in January, we saw an amazing weather window. And we didn't even know what we wanted to do. We were just like, oh, we have to go. Buy the ticket. So we did.
And figure out what we climb on the plane. So, yeah, we're going to keep going to El Chaltén. It's pretty magical. We ended up summiting the other 3 peaks in January, and Priti's actually the first female to summit all 4 of those peaks. I helped a little bit. But yeah, there's like nothing else like this in the world. Crazy tunnels and wild formations.
And on the last day to get to the summit of Torrey Egger, this is the summit. We took the picture at 2 a.m. because we just kept going through the night. We knew that the weather was coming in. We did not want to be on the mountain when that hit us. So there was no stopping. We just kept going, and we had a 48-hour day.
Yeah, you always feel urgent and rushed.
Yeah.
We had a couple of trips with like 40-hour plus days.
I kind of love this picture because this is when I was at the point of like, okay, I'm gonna like just keep going. I've got this, but, don't stop now. This is the point where we can either make this whole traverse and make it happen, or we can bail now. And we went for it.
Yeah, when we took our alpine climbing class through Bull Alps, we immediately went to Patagonia and just did something that was in our ability, which there's plenty to do, and you're just progressively throwing yourself a little bit deeper into like harder, more committing alpine climbing. And as long as you do it progressively and you understand your limits and the dangers of the mountains and what's going to come down and what's going to stay put, like it's fun to just keep pushing yourself even a little bit more than you think you can go. What I really like, Steve House did a talk, and he was saying that mountaineering and alpine climbing is unique because there's no barrier to entry. You can just you can just go to the mountain and look up and decide if you want to go up, and then turn around whenever you want to turn around and make your own decisions. And there's only haters there, but there's not people telling you not to do it or that you can't do it.
The important thing to know is always how you come down and when to turn around. And there was no turnaround point for us, but we knew all the options that we had.
So back to 2020. We finished 2 months in El Chalten, mostly not climbing anything and just being in town because the weather is just notorious.
I feel like people here maybe haven't heard of some of these mountains before, but there are a bunch of very classic routes on north faces of peaks. And the 6 classic north faces are these ones, and it's a list. And they're all really hard and iconic in different certain ways. And like the Eiger is very ominous. There's been so much controversy and death, and it's over the town of Grindelwald. And Grindelwald, of course, is the name of the Dark Lord in Harry Potter. And it's a dark, ominous place.
It was named after Harry Potter.
like
So we went to Europe, just wanting to have some fun and maybe ticking off a list because we're Pacific Northwest peak baggers and we like lists. So we wanted to maybe do these 6. And there's also just Chamonix is just an incredible spot, another awesome place. If you feel comfortable climbing Rainier on your own, you can consider climbing Mont Blanc on your own, or even with a guide. Mont Blanc's pretty rad. It's a lot similar characteristics to Rainier. And there's a lot of fun things to do around Chamonix.
This is the Eiger. There's only ledges small, big enough to lie like head to foot. There's no spots that you can like lie down next to each other. It's very vertical, and it's also super bad rock, super loose.
This
So
is
even
the
though the grade
bracket.
is easy, you're kind of like soloing lots of it because falling would be a really bad thing. We slept here on this tiny ledge. There's a place to sleep called the Death Bivouac. It's a very ominous name. But we
Not
brought
because it's dangerous, but because people died there. But it's totally safe.
So
Totally
there's
safe spot.
things to like anchor yourself into. So if you do roll over at night, you'll stay on the mountain.
Yeah, you're fully strapped in your sleeping bag because we're sleeping head to toe on this thing. And my sleeping bag popped, so I was just lying on snow when I couldn't fix it. And it was winter.
Never
Oh, and
slept
the
in the
train.
snow the whole time.
So at the base of the Eiger, it's just this huge ski resort. And there's a train that goes up 4,000 feet to the base of the Eiger. And then the day we showed up, the mayor shuts down the train. So
Because
then
of
we
COVID.
had to hike on an empty ski resort. Like we skinned
We
up
skinned all
to
the way up.
base.
So we added like a half a day approach
Mhm.
to get to the climb.
Yeah.
And then we skied all the way back down. That was fun.
But so this was late March. Everything was still open in Europe, but COVID was kind of starting to become a thing. But restaurants were open and there were no travel restrictions. And then when we came down, the president of France, Macron, he shut down France. And so we went back to Chamonix and we're in lockdown for 8 weeks.
We couldn't leave our apartment for more than an hour for 8 weeks. And
Poor
anyone who's a
us.
climber here would feel this. Those were the best 8 weeks of weather we've ever seen. We could see Mont Blanc out our window and we couldn't go.
In Chamonix, like all the pro athletes are on Chamonix, and it's just buzzing because it's the best weather we know that anyone. Like 8 weeks, and it didn't rain, like it didn't snow, and so that was. But we had a great view of Mont Blanc from.
Yeah.
So as soon as lockdown ended, it was just bats out of hell. Like Chamonix exploded, and everyone went to mountains.
We didn't care that our route wasn't in condition. We had to go.
So usually this route on Petit Clou is a nice casual rock climbing route, and
A beautiful hand crack is the crux. It should be so enjoyable. It was completely full of ice when we got there. That was a lot less fun to try to climb.
and Priti really wanted to paraglide, and I complied, and it turned out to be pretty cool. Paragliding is huge in Europe, especially
Yes.
climbing, fly, run and fly, hike and fly. It's like a big deal.
They make some of the best, smallest paragliders. Like before, paragliding wasn't such a thing with mountaineering because they're huge. You don't want to carry something like that to the top of the mountain. But now they pack down to like this big and maybe
Yeah, 4 pounds.
4 pounds. So it's still a lot if you have a lot of bulk, but it makes it possible to do like para-alpinism.
We're almost there.
Is that the right
It's
term?
almost good. So then we felt pressure because we lost 8 weeks, and so we just like jetted around the Alps trying to tag the other of the 6. So we went to Zermatt for the Matterhorn, which is an amazing route.
Yeah.
The Schmid route is like a 5-6, and it's incredible.
It's
On
a
the
little harder than a 5-6.
well, technically 5-6, but yeah. Well, so we climbed the North Face and we came down the Schmid route. Oh, the Hornley route. Thank you. The regular route on Matterhorn is a 5-6, and the North Face is harder. But it was wild because COVID was still like everything was open, restaurants were open, and you could climb. There was no limits to climbing, but nobody was on the Matterhorn. And usually it's just a line of people like holding hands up the whole Hornley Ridge, and then there's nobody.
We were sitting in the hut as people came to go climb the North Face and saw several parties turn back because conditions were too snowy, and we just sat at the hut for a while. And then all the snow consolidated, we went and climbed it, came back down, and then the weather crapped out, so anyone after couldn't go climb it either.
And then over to Italy, Dolomites, awesome place. Love to go back. Tons of amazing rock climbing.
I think
And
Alex
it's the
Honnold
best food.
has some free solo video he has of climbing.
Oh yeah, the
Dolomites.
VR solo
It's like a
thing.
3D VR thing.
Yeah.
Really fun climbing.
And then back to Chamonix, the Grand Terrasse. This time we actually took the paragliders while climbing, which was new for us. And we got to fly off the summit, which is pretty cool. In Chamonix, it's very popular. Everyone is doing this, so you're not special. But then you come to Seattle, and it's like, wow, he's flying off a Shuxen. Wow. And but it's like everyone's flying in Chamonix, and it's the future. So we need to catch up as a people.
We're wearing all of our puffy jackets, waking up from our snow trench we had dug at the summit so we could fly off in the morning. And then 30 minutes later, after paragliding off, we're like landing in the middle of summer trying to tear off our jackets so we can't tear them off fast enough.
Like below freezing at the summit to stupid hot. And the approach is horrible too. Like the Grand Terrasse is one of the worst descents off that mountain. And then number 6, which is one I had never heard of before, Piz Badil. It's kind of an old classic rock climbing route from the 30s. Pretty awesome, very moderate, 5'8"? Yeah.
It feels like the most Pacific Northwest style climbing. You have sort of granite-like rock, you've got like weird little crimps and also amazing chimneys and hand cracks and just beautiful granite. I would say it's more like 5'10" climbing, but it's good.
So we did the 6 and got the summit shots. And Europe's kind of weird. They like to put stuff on the summits of everything. And it's like you have this huge cast iron statue, like you're climbing up this hardcore pinnacle that's super steep and you feel so amazing. And then it's like, no, Virgin Mary was here first. And it's kind of exciting. It's like a Jack in the Box where you don't know what's going to be on top, but you know something's going to be on top. So you got to get the selfies, except Eiger because they're heathens. I don't know why the Swiss don't do that. But we do rock climb as well.
Maybe some of you have heard of Sayus. It's the place where some of the hardest rock climbing is on limestone.
Yeah,
Bibliography.
it's incredible. All of these spots. If you do the rock climbing thing,
Go
if you like to
visit.
have fun and
Fun.
not suffer. So, then Pakistan finally opened. So we had to wait months until Pakistan opened.
We were
India
supposed
and
to go
Nepal never opened up.
pretty early. We're supposed to go in like July and had to wait until October when they finally opened. So we just had to stay in France and do some rock climbing, some sport climbing by the ocean. Like, it was terrible. But finally, Pakistan was open, and we're like, oh, we have to go. If we don't try, what can we put down on the trip report that we just didn't go try? No.
But it was weird because 2020 there weren't any expeditions. India was closed, Nepal was closed. Pakistan didn't open up until late August or September. And really, people weren't going. We were the first expedition for that trip.
And we'd never done an expedition to the Greater Ranges before. Mostly people who go and do this don't have any success on their first trip. It's super high altitude. You're in Pakistan, in a foreign country. You have to deal with like getting ill, all of the stomach problems. And we wanted to do an unclimbed peak in Pakistan. And people were like, oh my gosh, doing an unclimbed peak on your first expedition? Yeah, that's not going to happen. And during like COVID time, super late in the year, fall, people usually go in the summer, it's going to be colder. Everyone's like, I don't know what you're doing.
Kind of just thought we'd go and figure out how to do an expedition. Like, how do you shower? How do you go to the bathroom and like just live on a glacier for 2 months? And then we did have a stretch goal, and then we had a stretch goal. So it was nice to go with some sort of objective that we could be proud of.
And having done the 6 north faces of the Alps, that was something that gave us confidence that, like, yeah, I think we can go handle stuff out there. We know how to climb mountains a little bit.
And the Karakoram range, which is what's in northern Pakistan, it's really unique. So the Himalaya is it's like a string of mountains, and it's relatively narrow for a mountain range. It's just really long with like big broad mountains and big broad valleys. And then the Karakoram is just this huge sprawling mass of
Very
impossibly
pointy
sharp,
peaks.
pointy peaks.
Super pointy and like
Deep valleys,
good rock,
tall
too.
peaks, good rock.
It's kind of like if you've been to Yosemite, the steepness and sheerness of the walls there, being in a valley like that, but then you put a huge mountain like Denali at the end because it's very high altitude as well. So you get the steepness, you've got the bigness, you've got the remoteness. Has it all.
And
This is our
we
base camp.
didn't the greater, like going to climb in the greater ranges, it's just so intimidating. You have no idea what to go do. And so usually what people do for their first expedition is steal someone else's project. And it's exactly what we did. And then you get there, you get to know the area, you find your own project, you find something new that inspires you. So I think it was 2017 or 2018 that Graham Zimmerman gave a talk at the Mountaineers about his trip to K6, and he also attempted K6 Central, and
He did the second ascent of K6 West.
and then
Yeah.
after this show, we were pretty like inspired to go over there, and we were like, "Hey Graham, are you going to do your project again?" And he said, "No, I'm never going back." He said, "Well, can we steal your project?" And he said, "Yeah, go send that shit."
It was some of that shit.
And that's exactly what we did. Like and not a lot of people do that. Just you go on Explorer's Web or just reports of what people have been doing and failed expeditions, and then you just go finish that because usually there's pictures and more information. And now that we've been there, we can be a little more creative for the next time. So this is our base camp. Expedition life is pretty interesting. We had 50 porters carry all of our stuff like in one go all the way to base camp and drop the loads, and then that's our home for 2 months.
So you think of going on an expedition like doing a bunch of climbing, going to these really cool peaks. You don't think about it as moving to a valley in the middle of nowhere for 2 months and living in a tent and playing lots of chess and cricket, which is what we did a lot.
So
So this is our family for 2 months.
So the porters drop everything off and then they go back home. But then this is our base camp team that stays with us. Isak is our base camp manager, kind of runs everything and makes sure that we're happy.
Super great guy.
He's kind of a badass. In his village, it was a culture shock in Pakistan. 99% of marriages are all arranged. And Isak was the first in his village and his wife to marry someone that wasn't arranged for them. And so he was really well known in the area for being like this progressive.
He was the
badass.
trendsetter.
Yeah, trendsetter.
It's becoming more popular to marry who you want, but there's still mostly arranged marriages. Like Captain Zoheb, he had a girlfriend that he really liked, and then they told him, no, you can't marry her, marry this other lady. And since he's in the military, he kind of has to do it. Otherwise, he has to do what the military says.
So we did have an officer at camp, which is kind of exciting because we are so close to like the China, India, Pakistan border. So you have an officer there making sure you're not a spy or I don't. They don't know what they're doing there, but it's the law, and they're usually kind of fun. Sometimes you get someone who's not stoked to be there.
And sometimes you have someone who just can't handle the ruggedness of being at a base camp. When he arrived, it snowed the very first time, and he was like, what did I get myself into? He had like one little fleece jacket. He's like, I think I need a better jacket.
Then we had a tour operator who doesn't stay with us the whole time, but he runs the show. He lives in Islamabad, but he'll travel around, make sure everything's set up, make sure we get all the right food and everything. And then
Ali, he's a super fantastic guy. Plays cricket super well. You wouldn't
everyone in Pakistan plays cricket.
Wouldn't be expecting it. He was killing it at cricket.
Then you have a full-time cook, 3 meals a day, eating like kings and queens. And then we were also joined by Colin Haley, who's always been our like inspiration for alpine climbing.
And if you haven't heard of him, he's from Mercer Island. He grew up here and started climbing in the Cascades. And now he mostly stays in Chamonix, climbs a lot in Chamonix. Super badass.
Finally make it to base camp. We took the paragliders. We didn't bring them on the mountain, but we did like fly around base camp.
It's a great way to do some acclimatization. So we'll hike up with the paragliders and then paraglide off and fly right to base camp. No need to hike downhill.
And the food's amazing. Just it's a kind of a mix of everything. And stacks of chapatis as far as the eye can see. And so I actually think I gained a bit of weight on it.
So this is our version of like cow tipping out in Pakistan. No way like showing cows being scared by a paraglider.
A lot of cows to deal with. But an amazing area. Like everything you see is all unclimbed. And like there's some routes on this thing, like multi-pitch,
Like
25
a
pitch.
sport route.
Yeah, they put like hundreds of bolts in, and so there's just so much to do in Pakistan. People can go for 4 weeks and have a productive trip, and obviously the longer the better. But your base camp is usually at 14,000 feet, and so you have to first adjust to that altitude, and then you go up very slowly from there.
The nearest village is called Hushay, and it's at 4,000 meters. So everyone who lives there everyday life, they're racing up and down these mountains, carrying their like 20 kilogram loads, and here we are like with our tiny packs going, oh my god, I'm never going to make it, this is horrible.
So highly recommend Pakistan. You can go and have a productive trip in like if you have 3 or 4 weeks. Amazing rock climbing. We had a little windsock. You can take the girl out of Florida, but Domingo's always going to come. So this is our peak, K6. It has 3 prominent summits. 2 of the summits have been climbed, and then the central one has not been climbed. And that was our objective. That was kind of our stretch goal for the trip.
It's super hard to tell the scale of things in Pakistan. But for example, this is a 1,000-meter face, so that's more than 3,000 feet of climbing. And you just can't really tell because the features just don't lend themselves to like understanding the scale. Things are huge. It takes a long time. And we had acclimatized a little bit coming up to this area, tried out all these different routes. The original route that Graham Zimmerman and Scott Bennett did is the Lion in Pink. and it involved some hard mixed climbing, but it was very direct. And then we tried other routes to see if that would go for us. And then when we came back down, it snowed. It snowed a lot, and we were really concerned that we would be wallowing for a long way.
Colin ate some bad chicken, so that like totally messed him up, and he had to go home. And it was just getting stupid cold. Winter was approaching.
The ridiculous thing is you're in such a deep valley that the sun, as it gets lower in the horizon, because it's later in the year, it will like disappear behind the peaks 5 different times. So we'd have 5 sunsets during the day, and then it would get cold, and then the sun would like reappear. And we knew it was getting late in the season. It was getting cold. The wind was blowing. Colin had gotten sick, so we're pretty like our morale was kind of like low. Like, oh no, our teammate left. So we weren't super psyched. The snow.
I think I cried as we approached for the last push. As we were walking up, just like, I don't want to be here anymore. I've done this approach so many times.
It's now
like
or never.
10 miles
the weather's
extra.
Gonna, like crap out any day.
Just to get to the base of the mountain, it's like 10 miles back and forth. And there's no trails or anything, but yeah, it's different to be on a mountain that you pick wherever you want to go, and you don't know where to go. You don't know what's over the ridge line. Nobody's been on any of these lines, and there's no guidebook, and you just get to choose your own adventure. So it's a totally different experience to just go out here and just go up a mountain.
So on our last push, we had a good-looking weather window. So we're like, okay, this is the chance. This is what we're going to go do. We're going to do it now. And we decided on the final line, the one that goes straight up the ice face. And there's like maybe a half an inch of snow over like bulletproof glacier ice. This stuff is like ancient. So we're kicking in our front points for 3,000 feet all day, climbing into the night. There's no place to stop, no place to put up a tent. You can't stop. Like, what are you going to do? Hang on an ice screw in the middle of the ice face? So we kept going. And we were simul climbing the whole way. And it was about 1 screw per half rope length. So always had like 2 screws in, but nobody's falling.
No fall.
No falling. It's like that calf burning angle where you're just like, oh no, make it stop.
And then finally you get up to the upper part of the mountain and it starts to flatten out. Finally get to be on flat ground again.
But unfortunately that snow had stuck around up there and we were wallowing and kicking steps and like just snow plowing our way. And what should have taken like 1 day ended up taking 3 days because the days are shorter. It was freaking cold because it's October. The wind was blowing 20 miles per hour over the peak the whole time because we're actually sitting in the jet stream and it was just blasting us. So you have like negative teens Fahrenheit and then wind blasting the whole time. It looks beautiful.
Ready for that. Yeah, it is sunny.
Sunny. It was very sunny.
So finally got up here. K6 West had been summited twice before. K6 Main, our ultimate objective was to like traverse the whole thing, but the wind and the cold, it's just too hard. So we didn't do Maine. So K6 Maine has still only been summited once in 1970. By
It
some
would have
badasses.
been like a 50-year anniversary. But
And then we traversed over. It was pretty easy walking, but the whole thing is above 7,000 meters. And then you have this amazing view of all around you.
this
And
is
you can
just
see
like
K2 and Broad
candy
Peak and the
stores.
Dasher Rums.
so many beautiful, jagged, high altitude, just beautiful peaks. So far.
So that's our line. We got to camp here finally when we got to the shoulder.
That's the 3,000-foot face. And then
And-
all the snow wallowing up to west. Just wallow, wallow, wallow.
And traversing over to Central. Central was a little bit harder than we expected.
It
like
was tricky.
Steep snow.
Steep
and
snow. Unprotected. There's this cornice at the top.
Upwards wallowing, but
I think
That-
Jeff got one good screw in. One like marginal screw in.
I just told you it was good.
Huh?
I just told you it was good. But I mean, still pretty safe. Like you could have rested a fall, but
Maybe.
it's such like big giant steps that, even though it's pretty steep, you're not really falling. And then magically at the very top, there's this perfect cone of rock that was attached to everything that I could sling and finally get a good belay. And then I just like touched the summit and like that's good enough. And Priti had to like come around and like come sit on it and put her feet over, which I wasn't gonna do that. But the other side is the north face of K6.
It was like the perfect arete to sit on.
Which is, it's like straight down from here.
And you can, so that's a Characusa Valley down there, and my feet are just hanging over one glacier, and it's like, I don't know, what is it, a 3,000 meter drop down to the glacier there, straight down? This is supposed to be one of the hardest unclimbed faces in the world.
Yeah. So we'll be camping around here for this summer. When we go back to Pakistan, we're going to go to the Characusa Valley. We're going to take a peek at the north face. But we did summit K6 Central, which is pretty fun. We sounded happy in the videos. It's like happy for the video. Let's get down.
People have asked, what's it like to get to the top of an unclimbed peak? And I was thinking, I think it's the same as getting to any other peak. How do I get down? No, but looking around was just incredible because there's so many peaks everywhere. And you're kind of higher than any of them except for some of the giant ones out in the distance, like K2, Brad Peak.
I did say, Priti, now we can have a kid. Got everything on our system. We still haven't yet. We get back down, and because there were no expeditions this summer, there was a lot of media attention that I was not expecting. I think, I don't know, in a normal year, I don't think we would have gotten as much attention, but the magazines didn't have anything to print. The blogs didn't have anything to write about.
Gone out there.
Because people just didn't,
It was shut down.
there was just so many unknowns to going traveling. And as soon as we got back to Islamabad, they whisked us away to a Pakistan TV station.
We didn't even know what was happening. They put us in a van, closed the door, and showed us up at the TV station. We were like, what?
I'd never been on TV before. Except the one time Betty White punked me on national TV, and that's another story. So we got to be in a bunch of magazines that we'll never get to be in again, like Japan and Spain, who just needed to fill pages with some pretty pictures. And then now, the past 6 months, we've been just
climbing stairs,
training, Mount Si and Cable Line and Mailbox.
We're summiting all the very, very local peaks, yeah.
Mountain. We're hoping to go back to Pakistan in a week, and we're going on the other side of K6, which is the Characusa Valley. And there's another mountain that's unclimbed over there that we're going to take a shot at.
K7 Central. We took this picture from K6 last time, and it's just so gorgeous. And there's K7 Main, K7 Central, K7 West. And West and Main have been climbed, but Central has been rather inaccessible.
And it's interesting that there are still, I think, 12 peaks above 7,000 meters that are unclimbed. And there's not a lot of attention. I think a lot of the pro athletes want to go do new lines and new faces. And being from the Pacific Northwest, we want to bag some peaks.
Some of them still do have some permit issues and visa issues, but K7 Central is not a 7,000 meter peak. It's 100 meters shy. So not quite there, but it's definitely worthy.
We're just going to take the safest, easiest way and get the peak and get off. Hopefully.
And we're also very fortunate to have a sponsorship from American Alpine Club with the Cutting Edge Grant and the McNeil Knott Grant, and also from Grit and Rock, which is UK-based grant. So thanks very much.
So we're heading out in a week. We'll be 2 months again in Pakistan. So thank you for this really beautiful send-off.
And
we feel so loved. We did go long. Thank you for your time. I think we can do a couple of questions. Yeah. Do we have a couple of questions? Yes, sir.
So, my longest day out is 23 hours straight.
Yeah.
I know you guys have done multiple 40 plus.
Yeah.
Does it get easier after you do multiple? And what do you actually do to stay awake after that 24-hour period? It is absolutely brutal and at a certain point for me unsafe.
Yeah, it's true.
So the question was, in case you couldn't hear, Mark's done a bunch of like 20-hour pushes, but how do you do 40-hour pushes? Does it get any easier or 30?
You get used to the hallucinations and you work with them. But yeah, it takes a little bit of training and doing like a little longer and longer pushes.
Yeah.
And then constantly fueling is the hardest part.
Yeah.
And then we
Definitely eating helps me a lot.
we'll take turns towards the end. We will take like leadership type turns where I say, Priti, you have to be in charge of us for a little bit longer. And then so she'll lead a couple of rappels and then make sure my rappels are all safe, and then I'll lead a couple of rappels. But we do have to say, like, this is dangerous. I'm not thinking clearly. You have to sort of think for me for a little bit, so that. But you do need to recognize that, yeah, it is dangerous.
It is dangerous.
And you can stop. You can always just stop. We only keep going if it's a safety issue. If the weather's coming in, we have to get off and the ice is falling in.
Sometimes it makes sense to keep going instead of stopping. If you're cold, but you know your way, and you have light, and you can keep going, sometimes that's better than stopping, where you could make it worse if you're just going to get cold and sit and not make any progress down. For me, I know eating helps me stay awake. Even if I'm just chewing on anything, it's harder to fall asleep. And if I'm moving, then it's not too hard to stay awake. But the moment I'm like belaying someone, that's when I'll start like falling asleep. So that's when I have to pay a little bit more attention. I think it was only when we climbed Salafay in like 40 hours that I was telling Jeff, I'm falling asleep while I'm belaying you. This doesn't seem safe. Maybe
You're at a great
I'd
race.
agree.
Go back 2 pictures.
Yeah.
Where's your line?
It's top secret, Wayne. You're my competition. No way. No, you have to get me good and dry, Wayne.
Jeff didn't even want to have this photo. I had to beg
So,
him to have this photo.
The first time we went, we didn't tell anyone we were going to Pakistan or what we were doing because we thought it was a cool thing to do. And then all of our friends back home were like, we haven't heard from Jeff. Where are they? So, and I didn't really want to even say, the grants made us say K7 Central. I wanted them to just say, Jeff and Preacher are going to go climb something. And they didn't want to say that. So I
It's out there now.
I didn't even want to say the peak because we are going to have other expeditions out there, like Japan and UK, going for the same thing as us.
And there are other people who are going to be out there who we know will be at the same base camp who don't have the same objectives as well.
Damn. Whoa, it's always
What's
a
the-
Wayne Wallace project.
Next door.
Always another one. All I do is repeat Wayne Wallace routes. That's it. But I have no original ideas in the Cascades. I have to go to the Karakoram to find original ideas. Fair enough.
That's because Wayne Wallace.
Because Wayne's done everything.
Yeah, Wayne's done
He
everything.
left us
You go
nothing.
there and it's like, Wayne was here alone.
Damn it. I
20
didn't
years
tell
ago.
anybody. All right, well, we have one more question. Yes.
You're obviously very different climbers. You're going to have different reaches and whatnot. How do you like weigh your different body masses when you're splitting up your gear and whatnot? Is it you're overcompensating and carrying everything just to make up for it? Or?
Usually we're fighting over who carries the heavier pack when we're hiking to approach something. But these days I'm realizing it's really hard for me to climb hard rock with a pack on because it really pulls me backwards so much. So I'm looking at how I can improve that because I don't want to like be giving Jeff the backpack all the time for climbing hard rock. But in the Torrey Traverse, we did end up hauling the pack a lot, or Jeff would follow with the pack since I couldn't climb with the backpack.
Yeah, it's a skill to follow with a heavy pack,
Yeah.
and then you have your leader with a light pack. And but Priti is pretty strong for her size, and usually we do carry about even weight backpacks,
I feel like
and I'm
I'm
still
always trying
dragging
really hard.
behind.
I think we also have really different strengths, which is a great thing to have in a team, and we're kind of lucky, fortunate in that regard. Jeff has a really good lead head for sketchy things and mixed climbing, and I feel like I am pretty good at like hard technical rock or just like pulling hard, strong moves. Like I'm a good boulderer, so that sometimes makes a good alpinist where you have to pull past like one crux and you get to the ledge or something. So we play to our different strengths.
And
Make a good team.
I think about the goal being getting to the top with the same energy levels, and whatever that takes, if someone has to take a heavier backpack, but you both have to be mentally and physically at approximately the same level at the summit, so you can both get down safely. And then, if there's too much of a compromise, then maybe you're just incompatible with that climbing partner.
I feel like we could have a whole like discussion on group dynamics and team dynamics.
Just gave that lecture for blobs this week.
Exactly.
All right, another question?
Oh yeah, I heard you might be a fan of the brand Arc'teryx.
Oh yeah, huge fan.
What are your favorite items to use when you're out there?
Do you have any picture? So actually,
Oh.
this backpack
This
has
is the
been through a
backpack
lot.
I hauled up Torre Egger. It has a couple of holes because my crampons and ice axes were sticking out of it a little bit. It's not ideal to have your tools, sticking out of your back.
But
it
it's
does
been
really
hauled up many mountains.
And I got this pack actually specifically for hauling because it has a super durable material. I had like a black diamond screen before and it just got destroyed so fast. This is like my favorite jacket. It's also super ancient. I need a new one soon.
You got this discounted at Whitaker Mountaineering like 10 years ago.
I looked at the tag recently. This is from 2012. This is a 10-year-old jacket, and I'm still wearing it.
You don't get rid of it.
Yeah, it's the beta. The beta, I think something LTFL, something like, not the AR one. What else do I have? Oh, I brought this one on Huntington. It's the Alpha Parka. Super.
Don't take it out. It'll
Okay, I won't
expand
take
the
it
volume of this room. And then none of us will get out.
Chalk
That is
bag, super
amazing.
great for everything. Also very light, so I bring in the Alpine. Oh, and these gloves. I have worn holes through them because I wear them all the time. But these are like the only thing that really works at high altitude because they're super warm, they're super dexterous, they're waterproof.
Used to be the Alphas, and now they're the Fissions.
Yeah, now they're the Fissions.
But these Fission gloves have literally been on all of the climbs
Of course.
that we've been on.
And again, these are all stuff I had before I was with Arc'teryx at all. I'm just like, these are the things that I really like, including this harness because it's super comfortable and super light as well, and super beat up. Yep, that's it.
All right, she came prepared. Any gear questions? I like gear questions.
Non-gear question.
All right.
Priti, I know you just got off Mount Huntington. It might be a difficult topic for you to talk about, but if you feel comfortable talking about that recent trip,
Yeah.
how was Mount Huntington?
So I went to Mount Huntington to climb with Anna Pfaff, who's a professional athlete, and she's super inspiring to me. It was an awesome climb, and I think the climb went super well. We got to the summit, and we came back down in 3 days. We had beautiful weather, but unfortunately Anna got frostbite on her toes, and we didn't even realize this until we were back at base camp the next day after we had already celebrated and like had a ton of food and slept. Then she pulled off her boots a second time because she'd already changed them once, and her toes were completely purple. And she just had to get them amputated, all her toes on her right foot she lost. So it's super unfortunate, but just make sure to stay aware that if you can't feel your toes, it's not okay. And just try to stay warm and do whatever you can. Like, it's super sad, and I'm sure she's such a strong lady, she's gonna be able to bounce back. Many famous, strong mountaineers have lost toes and bounced back and been as good as ever and strong as ever, but it's definitely devastating to lose your toes, and I feel really bad about it.
Reinhold Mendler lost his toes. Herman Bull lost his toes. He's still being alpinist.
But to reiterate, like, I don't think we did anything wrong. The climb went well. It wasn't even very difficult. I think some article has said it was harder. It was hard for us or something, or harder than expected. It really wasn't. Everything went really well, and it was kind of crazy to have this happen afterwards. Just like, this is nuts, wild, crazy, unexpected.
You gotta be careful if you do have like frost nip or a little bit of frost bite
It's true.
in one experience, then it takes a really long time to fully recover, like talking
At least
years.
2 years.
And then within those couple of years, if you go back, even in situations that you were fine before, you're way more susceptible. So it takes many years to recover even from a frost nip. So you want to be extra conservative after you have even a minor incident.
And we've learned a lot of lessons from this, and we're taking precautions when we're going to Pakistan this time. Making sure to have the warmest boots, getting heated socks.
And bring in the Olympus mods.
There's some things you can bring on the mountain too, like certain things like nifedipine or vasodilators or Advil, or there are things you can do. Research it yourself, but make sure you have things with you as well. We did. It didn't end up helping, but it's things that you can do if you can't get to the hospital really fast.
But Priti was badass.
And it's a bad
went in total organization leader mode, getting her out, getting her to the hospital, and like arranging everything and getting luggage. And so that's an important part of being a partner, being able to get your climbing partner out and being there for them and being like emotionally stable for your partner.
You never know what you'll end up dealing with.
I'm pretty lucky. All right. Well, I think, is it time for raffles?
Like one more question?
Is there another question?
Anyone else got a question?
Yes.
Talk about your food.
Oh yeah, the food is in Pakistan.
No, how you eat.
Oh, it's so hard. I
We're
have
vegetarian,
no idea.
first of all.
Oh, yeah.
But bringing mountain food is really hard. We love couscous because it rehydrates so fast and packs down so small, and you can just like eat it really quickly.
Yeah, like if you climb Denali, you find it's harder to eat at altitude, especially we're used to eating bars that are pretty high in fats, and since carbohydrates have more oxygen molecules, like you want more carbs, especially at altitude, and you want to be fueling yourselves with carbs. So it's really hard. Like we're bringing rice crackers and
Japanese rice crackers.
and oats and like high carb things to
Oatmeal
Pakistan, but yeah, and like pure sugar and like all that stuff that endurance athletes have been doing for 100 years. It works.
I do think the important thing though is to keep eating the whole time. I know it's hard for some people, but always keep a bar in your pocket because the moment you start bonking, it's too late. And eating keeps you warm, keeps you energized, but you can keep going for 40 hours. I guess it depends on what we're doing, but for like an alpine ice climbing route, our packs will easily be like, what would you say, like
15 to 20
15
pounds.
to 20 pounds? Yeah.
K6 was
Maybe an
maybe
approach
30 pounds
Yeah.
with a drone. Of course, all the electronics, because it's all about the video. So you get like, here's our Instagram, follow or not, I don't care. But we love making super amateur videos, like high quality footage with amateurish editing. So
Drones are fun.
check those out. And then we do have a blog. Yeah, people still do it, and we're pretty old school.
Sometimes we update it.
Yeah. You had a question?
I did. What's been your most epic?
Oh, that you have to go way back. So we got our epics out usually at the beginning of our climbing careers.
Are you thinking of the same one I'm thinking of?
Mont Blanc?
Oh, Mont Blanc.
Mont
in
Blanc.
Alameda.
Like an open sitting bivouac in the snow
We thought we would have good weather.
with a tarp over us.
The first day, like it started snowing so hard, we had to sit down on the snow slope. We couldn't see where we were going. Put the tarp over us as it like sloughed constantly over us. And then
I was
we were
gonna-
wet. Oh my gosh.
I was gonna get rid of all my gear after that trip. And
Jeff's
just
sleeping
unbag
bag
it.
turned into like a ball of ice, and then we had 2 more nights on the mountain. So the next night we lay on an ice field under the tarp, and Jeff like tried to crawl into his ice block, which was supposed to be a sleeping
Mont
bag.
Blanc is usually not this hardcore, but we like threw ourselves at some technical route that we were very safe on. We survived, but I like doing a little bit above what I think I'm ready for because I'm just too impatient to wait till I'm ready for something.
And this is from the Italian side, which is much steeper and much taller. So the Italian side of Mont Blanc, the valley is way lower, so you get much harder routes. And when we were climbing this, some guy climbed past us in jeans, soloing it in a day.
Chamonix is just like many levels above what we Americans understand what is possible.
And
It's unreal.
when we were climbing Cassine Ridge on Denali, we're like day 3 into our route, and someone comes strolling up along on the glacier, no partner in sight, and it's Colin Haley who's come from the bottom doing his speed ascent in 7 hours. And we're like, yeah, we're slow. He even stopped to talk to us.
It's like, come on, just keep going, keep going, keep going. Yeah. Any others? Fun questions. Oh, it's hard. Yeah, it's so easy to overtrain. So we are in a very strict training plan, like the uphill athlete garbage, which is our Instagram has been so boring for 6 months. We have to tell all of our friends, I'm sorry, I can't go climbing, I can't go skiing. But I think I've come out of it stronger. I don't know.
Lots of stretching.
All right, what do you say? One more?
One more
One more.
back.
Okay,
One back there. The gal.
we got
back
one
there.
quick hand.
Yep. Yep. You.
Oh no, you can't. You got to go to Bozeman. You got to go to Uray.
No,
I mean,
no. You can go to Wayne's World. Wayne's World is a great place. You can get your dry tooling in there.
yeah.
Sometimes in the winter it comes into mixed or ice conditions. Yeah, Wayne's World.
So there is a lot of neat ice and mixed climbing in the Cascades, but it's out there, and you never know when what the conditions are, and it's like a weird little cult group here in the Pacific Northwest of mixed climbers. But if you want to just get mileage on cragging, you get Wayne's World for dry tooling, and then otherwise you got to go to Highlight or go to a festival. We've been to a lot of ice climbing festivals.
There
and
are
they're
a lot
awesome.
of cool mixed routes here too that I'm sure you've probably heard of if you're interested, like Cherry Peak or New York Gully on Snoqualmie. There's a lot of things to do if you're starting to get into that, but make sure, I think there's a lot of importance in getting good at ice climbing too. Like going to a festival, for example, is an awesome thing to do to get into it initially, especially for ice climbing, because yeah, it's hard to find good ice in Washington.
Awesome.
I think there was
Thank you
one,
all so much.
Right, one
Oh.
back there.
one back middle, maybe? Yeah.
Our what? A local epic. Did we luck out and not really have a local epic? I mean,
Oh, well, sort of. I had a local. Yeah,
oh yeah, you had a local epic.
yeah. Right when I first started climbing, I ended up taking a really bad fall because I was climbing on loose terrain and piece moved, and I ended up falling on my face, and I got a concussion and like kind of fractured my orbital a little bit, and then had to self-evacuate. So I've had an epic. Yes, Jeff did not have. He was not there. It was on Lima. We're gonna do the traverse
I don't think many
It's
people
very
have been up on
classy.
Lima Peak.
Not sure I recommend it.
It's not recommended.
My partner was
Lima. Who's
excellent
ever even
and
heard
like
Lima?
helped me down, made sure everything was safe, even though I was pretty out of it still, and got me to the hospital.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Cool.
There's some good routes on Lima.
No.
Well, okay, they're okay. They're a lot better than the Traverse.
Even
I
my
wouldn't say they're
Cascade
not
standards.
chossy.
No,
They're
there's no
probably
reason to
still
go
very
Lima.
chossy.
All
They're
right.
better routes.
Well, thank you all again so much. We can't tell you. We feel so much love, and we're jazzed to represent America and go to Pakistan, represent Seattle, and hopefully come back with more than a belly full of dal.
Yeah, hopefully we can come back and tell some awesome stories or talk about the food.
All right, now for what everyone came here for, some free gear. You didn't have to even buy a raffle ticket tonight.
Look
How
newer
about
than
that?
this.